Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to Pleiadeantransmissions. For those of you who don't know, my name is Ollie Abhain-Ananda, and I'm a psychic and galactic intuitive. And I felt like just sitting down this evening to share with you, connect with you all, and speak a little bit about a particular star system that's of interest to me, being a star seed myself, being fascinated with the cosmos and the great beyond, and the current planetary ascension process that's taking place on the planet. And I feel it's of benefit. For me, anyway, it's so fascinating, and it's a passion to bring through some of this high dimensional wisdom and knowledge and help people to connect in with the greater galactic network that we're a part of, which of course involves other star systems and planets. So I felt like maybe starting a bit of a series here where I go into a bit more detail as to some of the star systems that have a historic connection to planet Earth, um, with regards to seeding life here, having some sort of frequential genetic influence, but also as humans to cover some of the systems that we have had experiences in and that we come from as star seeds that take form as human beings. So, the first star system, which I'm super excited to get into and talk about, is Sirius. It's a big one. It's one of the brightest stars in the night sky. It's an incredible system with such a high frequency. The frequencies there are going up to 8th density, would be my intuitive sense, down to the 5th density, which would be the closest frequency to Earth. We're currently vibrating those who are going through ascension are currently vibrating at a 4th density state, and from times we'll dip into 5th density. So yeah, the frequency that's closest to ours in Sirius would be the 5th density. And Sirius is actually made up of two stars, Sirius A and Sirius B. It's a binary system. It used to actually be made up of three stars, Sirius C. However, Sirius C was actually destroyed in a previous conflict that actually had something to do with Earth. I won't go into the details too much as to the history of Sirius C and what came into fruition there. But what I will say is that the evil that is being purged and purified by source, by light on the planet at this moment in time, it's that very evil that has how can I say this? As a consequence of this evil that is currently on this planet, Sirius C was destroyed in the past. It was a magnificent system with such light, such power, such strength, and there are definitely still star seeds and beings that have had many experiences in Sirius C on planet Earth at this moment and experiencing elsewhere. Just because the system was destroyed doesn't mean that the light that was experiencing itself there and the souls were also destroyed. That's impossible. Light can never be destroyed. It was just as a consequence of actually a Earth-based conflict, Atlantis, Lemuria, and evil infiltration on the planet and the use of an energy weapon which destroyed most of the planet, and as a consequence there were other systems that were affected before, during and after. That's all the details I'll go into for now. But just to go into more detail about Sirius B and Sirius A for now, because they're more relevant, let's say, as part of the Galactic Federation in the ongoing ascension process that's taking place right now, that's happening to me. It's most likely happening to you if you're watching this video, and it's happening to the planet. So first of all, I'd like to speak of Sirius B. So Sirius B and the worlds that are contained therein in the different frequential bands, you'll find mostly aquatic beings, beings that would look hominid, anthropic, would look like human beings in terms of structure. Of course, they would look more etheric, less physical, less solid. They would look like human beings in the basic form and the basic structure, but would have more of a aquatic, even reptile-like appearance. We're not talking about malevolent reptiles here. We're just talking about reptiles, you know, in the sense of like snakes and lizards, other divine beings, actually. You can imagine that, you know, overlay onto ourselves, you know, the skin being scaly and reflective, incredibly beautiful, you know, colors that are, you know, from another world, with eyes that look reptilian, more kind of cat-like, like cat-like reptile eyes. If you've ever seen like a crocodile's eye, incredibly beautiful. Look that up, crocodile's eye or an alligator eye. It's so incredible to look at that in detail. So we're sort of talking about, that's the appearance of like a being from Sirius B, and the civilizations that exist there are land-based, but there are also aquatic civilizations. And yes, there are souls, potentially you watching this right now, who have chosen to incarnate on the planet from Sirius B. So if you feel like you have a strong connection to Sirius, or a strong connection to water, or aquatic beings, or you dream of aquatic environments and aquatic places, you could well be a Sirian starseed from Sirius B. The frequency of energy, or the frequency of light there, is predominantly blue. That's how we would receive the frequency and the energy of Sirius, how we would perceive it, as something blue in colour, incredible. I would say it's kind of like a deep blue. It can go into like a more of a light sky blue, but it's more of like a really deep blue, almost like an indigo type colour. That's the frequency of light of Sirius. And there are starseeds from Sirius B on the planet at this time that have chosen to come as volunteers on behalf of the Galactic Federation. So I won't go into the details too much as to like the volunteers and the Galactic Federation. You may have heard of Dolores Cannon. She's basically dedicated most of her life's work to this. If you haven't heard of her, I would recommend looking her up. She's written several books, and you can find her talks on YouTube. Incredible information and channeling that she brings through there, has to do with, you know, real Earth history and star systems and star seeds and volunteers. I would highly recommend looking her up. But there are many different star seeds on the planet right now, and star seeds from Sirius B will have specific traits and characteristics that they will embody. So beings or star seeds from Sirius B are highly empathic, incredibly empathic, very sensitive, maybe even too sensitive, most likely too sensitive for the frequencies of the old Earth matrix. Very connected to other people on that deep emotional level, will feel on an incredibly deep level and will relate to life very much on that deep emotional level. They're not so mental, they're more sort of rooted in their emotions and their hearts, of course. You'll find them to be highly driven and motivated despite their sensitivity, and in some ways quite compatible. Not as compatible as beings from Sirius A with Earth, but they're pretty well integrated into Earth's energies, more so than, let's say, Pleiadian starseeds or Arcturian starseeds. They're funny, witty, personable. They actually sometimes have quite a dark sense of humor, a dark side. I'm thinking of Bill Hicks right now. I don't know if you have heard of Bill Hicks or know of his comedy, but to me, he would have a very strong connection to Sirius B. That sort of edginess and that kind of very sharp way of looking at things. Beings from Sirius in general kind of have this frequency that can kind of like cut through bullshit and just get to the truth of things, the core of things. And star seeds from Sirius B also have that, as well as this kind of like dark sense of humor and just being really funny, and they kind of light up the room. They really fill a space, and they're very magnetic. They'll be seen and recognized by other light workers, and they'll definitely stand out from a crowd. Although, in and amongst people who are very much identified with the old habitual conditioned way of thinking, will most likely overlook them. They'll go under the radar. But when it comes to people who are also of a high frequency, there'll be people who really magnetize other light workers towards them. They can often be way showers actually for others. And again, like I said, masters of empathy. They may even find themselves in roles such as spiritual teachers, excuse me, artists, performers, entertainers, influencers, prominent in the spiritual community, spiritual awakening community, things of that nature, spiritual businesses, being entrepreneurial, and of course they will have a natural affinity to water, love being by the water. Of course there is room for contradiction. I'm not saying this is like for everyone, but will have a strong affinity to water, connections to dolphins for sure, and other marine life, and will find lots of benefit, on a health level, a health and lifestyle level, to spend time by water, to maybe even swim. So yeah, that's it for Sirius B. If you are interested, by the way, in having a personalized Akashic reading for yourself, I do offer those, and in those readings I will be able to tap into the Akashic records and access the information specific to your soul, where your soul has been, your starseed origin, and I can go into much more specific detail as to the star systems that your soul has a strong connection to, the personality traits, the health and lifestyle optimization advice, and many other nuanced details to do with being a starseed from a specific star system, as well as your soul's journey. So if you are interested in that, please do feel free to get in touch with me. My email address is down below, pleiadeantransmissions@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to chat with you. If you just have any general questions or you just like to connect, I'm very happy to do so and give you more information about Akashic readings. You can reach me at my email address down below. Okay, just 1 second. So, that was Sirius B. Now Sirius A, which is actually a relatively contradictory system. At least my sense with Sirius A is there's lots of contradiction there, lots of, you could say, dualistic energy. When I connect to Sirius A, or when I think of beings from Sirius A that are on Earth right now, I'm thinking of like Olympians, Olympic athletes, like big celebrities, big hotshot musicians, you know, TV personalities, like big businessmen and tech people, and the people who you might call like elite or being part of the elites. Now, I'm not saying like all elites are Syrians. In fact, most of them are actually just demons. They don't actually have souls. They're just kind of like this demonic force incarnating itself and trying to have its way. Of course, that's just a joke. But many beings who do have souls, who you could call star seeds from Sirius A, often do find themselves in these positions where they're at an advantage over, let's say, the majority of the population on that sort of like monetary, physical, superficial power level. And that has to do with the historic connection relationship between Sirius A and the constellation of Draco, which is very interesting to talk about actually, but it would be too much to go into detail as to Draco right now. But what I will say is that reptiles, in the sense of malevolent reptiles, in the sense of servants of a demonic force, have a very strong association to the Draco constellation. And many it's hard to sort of age these things or put a time to it, but we'll say thousands of years ago, the constellation of Draco and the beings that existed there entered into some sort of mutual alliance with Sirius A, in the same way in which this evil infiltrated Atlantis, presented itself as something harmless or just presenting a different way of life or a different relationship to consciousness, of course that being a deception, in order to win favor and loyalty to people that actually did have a connection to the source via their souls. And this happened in Sirius A. Many souls were convinced that the way in which these malevolent beings related to life, in fact being in opposition to life, was the way forward. Because, why? It gives some sort of short-term, superficial advantage gain, like you would see in the ways people live on the planet today, where they live to acquire resources and some sort of short-term power or influence over the other people, the rest of the population. So beings of Sirius A, and you could also consider these to be fallen beings or even fallen starseeds, have been incarnating on this planet for a very long time. Think back to the pinnacle of Egypt, these civilizations that came after the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria. These civilizations would have been ruled by these malevolent reptiles from Draco, also malevolent beings from Orion, another rabbit hole that I won't go into for right now, and beings from Sirius A. These would have been what were depicted in hieroglyphs and worshipped as gods. I have to caveat that not everything in Egypt is malevolent. There is some benevolence there and some strong ties to source consciousness. Not every hieroglyph is something evil, but there are definitely depictions in which beings are worshipped like gods, and that's kind of what I'm referring to, you know, these false gods who are dominating and domineering themselves or putting themselves above everyone else. So, starseeds from Sirius A, that's kind of the frequency. It's something dualistic. It's in allegiance and alliance with evil. And there are certain traits and characteristics that go with Sirian A beings. They're actually incredibly genetically compatible with the energies of Earth, although most likely becoming less compatible as our frequency expands and evolves. It will actually start to push them out because they have that connection to evil, and evil cannot remain. So historically they've been very well integrated. They would be confident within themselves, naturally, you know, ready to work hard and show up and push and persevere towards excellence or positions where they are at some sort of financial advantage or societal advantage. Genetically, you could say advanced to some degree. That's why, you find lots of Olympians would have that connection to Sirius A. You'll see them doing things like this and other kind of symbology and things that connect to not only Freemasonry but have some sort of Syrian connection. It's important to distinguish here. This is to do with Sirius A, not Sirius B or C, because they're separate. They're different. These are God-oriented, consciousness-oriented, love-oriented systems. Sirius A does have that, but it also has this darker, fallen side to it. That said, there are benevolent beings from Sirius A that never followed the malevolent influence or calling from this force, that are currently part of the Galactic Federation. And there will be star seeds of Sirius A that are on the planet right now that have come on behalf of the Galactic Federation, who will navigate within, the social, societal spheres like we all have to in some way. And often these star seeds will find themselves in positions such as leadership, or find themselves as, people that are more physically inclined, like being athletic, but using that as a way to sort of promote sovereignty. I'm thinking of like rock climbers here. I don't know if you've heard of Alex Honnold, amazing rock climber, made a movie, Free Solo. He would be a Sirian A starseed, at least to my sense, but he has something aligned with the source consciousness. He brings through the energy of the soul, the energy of freedom, exploration, connection to Gaia, exploration outside of the matrix. So you see how someone like that is bringing through an energy that is, hardy, earth-ready, daring, very strong and compatible, but inspires people to explore and express themselves in ways that is outside the mainstream. So that's just kind of a little example there of how that energy can come in and work in a positive way. The frequency and energy of Sirius A, as we would interpret it in terms of light, would be a red, a very strong red. Think of the root chakra, like root chakra red, like Mount Shasta, like grounded mountain kind of rootedness, strength, bold and courageous kind of red color that would come through, that we would be able to interpret. And like I said, these beings are part of the Galactic Federation, and like many other light workers, are here to assist with the planetary ascension process. Okay, I'll just have another sip of water and then we'll finish off with Sirius C. So, Sirius C. Super interesting system. It would be a system that I personally would have had a historic connection to, although I would consider myself to be predominantly a starseed with a Pleiadian signature at my core, having had many experiences in the Pleiades. Originally my first, let's say, soul incarnation would have been Lyra, and following the Pleiades I would have had many experiences in Sirius B, but also Sirius C. I feel like, for me personally, not to make it too much about myself right now, that's not what this is about, but I feel like lots of my light codes and my DNA is being activated from Sirius C right now, because the frequency of Sirius C is actually lots about being in opposition to darkness. In many ways, that's actually why Sirius C was destroyed, because of its firm stance against evil. Sorry, excuse me, against evil. So Sirius C, not so aquatic. I actually forgot to mention, now that I think about it, what Sirius A would have been like in terms of the beings and how they would have looked. I would say there's much overlap with Sirius B, actually, in terms of the aquatic nature and the aquatic beings, whereas Sirius C is very much exclusively terrestrial, very much like a rugged landscape. There's actually lots of like desert, but also rainforest on these worlds, or when it did exist. This is just kind of soul memory that I'm talking about right now. Would have been primarily lots of desert and rainforest, incredible temples there, you know, structures that you can think of, kind of like, you know, Aztec style. My sense that Sirius C would have had strong connections to the Aztecs, actually. And the beings would have, again, looked very human, hominid, anthropic in the way we would perceive them, but very, very etheric, very, very see-through, something very silvery. Silvery, there's also, you know, frequency of golden light in there, very etheric. So even though they're kind of hardy, I'm sort of like really picking up this hardy, sort of strong, courageous, like no bullshit energy, actually. Like, you think you're gonna come into our system and fuck with us or fuck with our neighbors? Like, nah, I'm not having that. That's kind of the energy I'm picking up, but they're not so physical, because the frequency that predominates in Sirius C is incredibly high. We're talking like up to ninth density consciousness, beyond which we're talking about like totally non-physical, like we're going into sort of the angelic spheres then. So those would be the kind of the beings of Sirius C. And yes, there are star seeds, original star seeds of Sirius C, that are incarnate on the planet right now. And the traits of these star seeds would be very similar to as I've just described. You know, they're cut, they're kind of clean in their energy, as in like they're sharp, they're rooted, they have like a keen eye for bullshit, and they stand very much in opposition to evil. Now, I don't mean like fighting it with, let's say, violence, although it can go in that direction if, let's say, sovereignty or freedom is in jeopardy. You know, we have a right to stand up for ourselves and defend ourselves. But Syrian beings from Sirius C very much embody that kind of zero tolerance, no bullshit, don't fuck with me energy. You might be taken aback by them if you were to see them in public, because they do have something that's just like kind of militant, but in like a loving way. It's kind of hard to say. Like, there's probably some Syrian sea star seeds who end up going into the military before they kind of, you know, awaken to the reality that, you know, you don't want to serve these governments, because they are looking for something that's kind of like structured and disciplined, and they have that kind of commanding and authoritative presence about them. So if you were to see someone like that in public, you would most likely pick up something at the core that is like playful and quite childlike and centered in the heart, but also something that's kind of like commanding in the aura of that person, you know, like don't get too close kind of thing. But they mean well. I've encountered a few starseeds from Sirius C, and like they're some of like the best people to be around, because it's very refreshing to encounter people that just kind of don't care, you know. The sort of people who, you know, there's nowhere they're going to put on, I don't know if I can use the word, a fabricated muzzle, let's say. I think you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, very much Earth ready, genetically incredibly compatible, like almost too compatible. They're somehow too present or too grounded for people to even really be able to like interact with them. Often they'll actually find it difficult to integrate into any role or find, you know, a suitable workplace or environment because they're such a unique frequency. And the fact that their homeworld was destroyed, they often will feel like they don't have somewhere to root to, which might make it seem like they're just these kind of like travelers wandering around, like, where do I belong? Where do I belong? Until they realize that actually it's just about belonging to themselves. Like their individuality is actually what they're here to embody and express, and that in a sense can be incredibly powerful as a way shower to other people, and to have that sort of zero tolerance and to not really want to try to fit in with the rest of society and the old Earth matrix. The frequency and the energy of Sirius C is actually yellow. It's kind of like a golden yellow sort of colour. You may also find some reds mixed in there as well, kind of similar to Sirius A. In many ways, Sirius C is like a fusion of Sirius B and Sirius A. Like the frequency, the energy, and the star seeds and the beings are very much like, if you combined like the empathy and the sensitivity and the care of Sirius B with like the confidence and the earth readiness and the courage and the hardiness of Sirius A, like you get Sirius C. Very powerful combination. So yeah, the frequency of light is yellow. You may also find coming through reds and golds as well. And there are many beings of Sirius C that sit very high on the Council of the Galactic Federation because well, they understand better than anyone when it comes to dealing with demonic forces and evil, and lots of the energy is coming through right now on this planet. Like I said, I can sense for me that lots of my DNA and light codes, genetics from Sirius C are reawakening because of a certain like no bullshit frequency that we need to embody right now. So you might feel that coming through, and maybe as you've heard me talk this evening, there's certain things you've picked up where you're like, oh yeah, like I did kind of, you know, pick that up or did sense that coming through, or maybe even you recognize some of what I'm talking about within yourself, which is great. It's just more to you, you know, like the more you know about our multidimensional nature and like the true history of this planet and like the greater galactic network, you know, the greater capacity you have to actually break away from all of these like old, outdated, stale, crusty systems that we've been brought up in, and find back to like true sovereignty within yourself. So I think that about covers it for Sirius. I really enjoyed making this video and talking about the Sirius system as a whole and the star seeds from there and the characteristics. And yeah, interconnecting and relating that. There's so many like offshoots as I'm talking where I realize I could go into like so many different directions, and there's many ideas for different videos, and I just feel very passionate about delivering this information and sharing what I know or what I receive. Most of what I receive is, I would say it's like 80% like channeled, like downloads from my higher self and my guides, the Akashic records, the Galactic Federation, and then 20% is probably what I've kind of like read or watched, heard, from people that really, really influenced me, such as David Icke, Credo Mudwa, Dolores Cannon, many, many others, spiritual teachers and channelers, so on and so forth. I'm really passionate about sharing this information because it really helps to free us as a species and find back to who we, really truly are, and just cut through and cut away all the bullshit that we've basically been kind of like drip fed over the years. So like I said, partway through this video, like I do offer Akashic readings. I've opened up this YouTube channel, and I also have a Facebook page which I'll link down below. I do offer Akashic readings, which are basically, like I said earlier, a personalized transmission for you from the Akashic records, where I can transmit, translate, lay out in a written document for you, very high quality, professionally done with lots of care and love and attention, your starseed origin. It's usually one or two star systems that you would have the strongest connection to, where I will go through like traits, characteristics on the physical, spiritual, emotional levels. I'll pick up things very specific and personal to you, messages that are coming through, things to do with optimizing your health, lifestyle adjustments, things such as like crystals that could be beneficial to you, essential oils, spiritual practices, different exercises you can do. All of this is channeled from the Akashic records, so it's very, very accurate in my opinion, because it comes from your soul, from the higher self, and it's facilitated by your guides. Of course, it's not going to be like a 100% follow everything to a T guidance. It's just take what resonates with you. So yeah, that's what I offer. That will be the short form, and then the long form would actually be that information with a more detailed soul's journey for you, which would be a few more pages added on there, where I go into more detail about like experiences you've had, again channeled from the Akashic records, in previous lifetimes, in different star systems, and how this interconnects and interrelates to like why you're here on Earth right now, what lessons you're potentially going through, what your evolutionary path is, maybe some messages that you need to hear. And yeah, I kind of package that as just a document, it's like a high quality PDF. I was considering potentially, making that accessible physically. If you would be interested in that, we can talk about that, via email. My email address is down below, pleiadeantransmissions@gmail.com. We can discuss in more detail, like, I'd like to try and tailor it as personal to each person as I can. And we can just chat there. We don't even have to just talk about, Akashic records. If you just didn't quite understand, what I've been talking about here, or there's something that interests you, or just any other questions, we're here to support each other as light workers, as star seeds, and just as human beings on this kind of crazy journey, especially right now. It's very intense. So yeah, my email address is there. Feel free to get in touch with me. If what I've shared with you today resonates, or you feel some kind of excitement or joy or bliss or connection, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. That really helps. Give this video a like. You can share it with people that you might feel would benefit from it, and again, you can check out my Facebook page as well if you're interested. Okay, that's it. Much love and light. Peace to you wherever you are in the world. I hope you're safe and I hope you're well. God's love be with you. and I'll see you in the next one.